BMW just announced the new generations of the M3 and M4 set to release in March of 2021. The new chassis model codes are G80 for the M3 sedan and G82 for the M4 coupe. And as with any new generation of M car, it definitely took the world by a storm, and of course there are certain elements that drove strong opinions by a lot of reviewers. So what I wanted to do in today's video is give a brief introduction to these two new cars, talk about some of the things that really stood out to me, and of course, we'll make our way out to the internet and see how people have started to modify these new cars before they've even been released. This is another Velocity Crew quick look, and today we'll be focusing on the 2021 G80 M3 and the G82 M4. But first, I had to time that pretty good. But first, just wanted to give a quick thank you and a shout out to anyone who's watched the videos or subscribed to the channel recently, because we've just, I don't know if it's the YouTube algorithm or whatnot, but we just got a ton of activity in this past month. And yeah, just wanted to give thanks. We just hit 150 subscribers, which is pretty crazy, and it continues to go up every single day. So it tells me you guys are enjoying these videos to some degree. So with that, if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribing really helps because I plan to make videos like this all the time. Anyway, thank you so much. Now let's get on with it. So, the new M3 and M4. What are the highlights? Well, for starters, there's a whole new interior and exterior design for both cars. And starting with the exterior, both cars are a little longer and a little wider. The M3 is a tad shorter than the prior generation, and the M4 is actually a very small bit taller than the prior M4. The same aggressive fender flares remain, as well as the standard carbon fiber roof, which can be opted out for a sunroof at no cost. The body lines of the car are actually pretty complementary of its more aggressive design, but the taillights are a little too Lexus RCF-like in this new generation for the 3 and 4 series, but it looks still pretty decent on the M3, where the M4 has taken more of the 8 series sharper rear end look. There's also something called the Shadowline exterior trim on both vehicles, which essentially darkens all of the chrome bits on the car, including the side mirrors, the tailpipes, and the window trim, and it's basically the equivalent to Mercedes-Benz's night styling package, and it just gives the car a much more sinister look. Which, speaking of side mirrors, these latest ones are a little boxier but still contain the integrated turn signal as well as some 360 camera support compared to the F80 M3s, which were a little bit more curved. Different aerodynamic purposes, I guess, but worth pointing out. And let's just briefly talk about the OEM exhaust tips. They are now 4 inches in diameter, and just for reference, the outgoing F80 M3 and the M4, they only had 3-inch exhausts, so you got another inch in diameter. On the competition package, which will be offered in the summer of 2021, both the M3 and the M4 get smoked taillight standard, an automatic 8-speed M Steptronic transmission, no more dual clutch, larger wheels, and for the first time, all-wheel drive. There's also a power boost, but we'll get to that shortly. Now, you might be wondering why I'm so focused on these little obscure differences here, but if you notice, it really shows that BMW was going for maximum aggression in this new design. And the one piece that the entire internet is focused on when it comes to aggressive, or at least the most dramatic piece of this car, is what BMW decided to do with the front end. And I really didn't want to make this the focal point of the discussion here, but BMW really did a lot within their power to make this front end stick out. I mean, aside from the kidney grills now turning into lungs, which is the joke on the internet, even the hood itself has these indentations that accent the new air intakes or nostrils in the front end. They really wanted this thing to be dramatic. I'll admit, in the beginning, I was definitely in the camp of, I don't like it, and that's since evolved into, well, I don't hate it, and I'll tell you why. Yeah, I had to use an Among Us reference, but it's the in thing right now. I had to capitalize on it. Anyway, so I don't hate it, but it's still not appealing to me. And I'm trying to find the positive here, because somebody made a decision somewhere to do this, and it was apparently the right thing to do, maybe from a performance perspective or some other type of engineering need. But the only question I have is the BMW M8, and oh, good God, look at this thing. It's just so beautiful. I think this is one of the best cars right now. It's probably the best car the BMW makes. But anyway, and then you look at the M5, both of these have more power, and they do not have these gigantic air intakes or air inlets in the front grille. So there's got to be some kind of reason why they chose to do this. And if you know why, I just simply haven't dug as deep into it as I probably should, but leave a comment below because I'd be curious to know. Either way, I think this car is going to sell really well, and I think it's going to be really popular. And you'll see there's some renders later on in the video that show how people would like to see it reimagined. Right, let's talk about the interior of the new M3 and the M4. More or less, the cars are pretty similar in this area. You're bound to see a lot of M logos and other branding cues to show you that your money was well spent, and there's just a ton of red accents. You'll find it on the start-stop button in the center console, on the up and down paddle shifts, and of course the M5 style M custom setting buttons. When you opt for the carbon fiber package, you get quite a bit in the door inlays, the center console, and even the steering wheel and paddle shifter trim pieces for the competition models. You also get a number of different seat options, starting with the M Sport seats, which give you in-seat ventilation for the first time in an M3 or an M4, as well as the optional M Carbon bucket seats, which save 21 pounds, and all seats can come with a variety of different color options to add your personal touch. As you can see on these launch cars, they've got some pretty loud colors, or to show the extent of which you can customize it. And you now also get a 12-inch digital instrument display as standard alongside the already large 10-inch touchscreen in the center console. Otherwise, there haven't been many massive enhancements or redesigns on the interior. It's more or less just an evolution over the prior years. Anyway, moving on, both cars are about 450 pounds heavier than their predecessors, but easily make up for this with the increased engine power output. And speaking of power output, let's talk about the engine and some of the new performance tech in this car. So the engine still remains a 3-liter 6-cylinder twin turbo, but now it's called the S58, and it puts out 473 horsepower in the base form and 503 horsepower with the competition package. And the torque ratings are 406 pounds-feet of torque as well as 479 with the competition package. So this means 4.1 seconds to 60 in the standard car, 3.8 in the competition. This is just slightly an enhancement over the F80 and the F82 M3 and M4, but again, with almost 500 pounds more, it's still impressive that it's quicker than its predecessors.
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Hold on, wait a second. Is BMW now doing the Rolls-Royce style floating center caps on the wheels? On an M car? Oh my goodness. Okay, I don't like this. I think it's dumb. Anyway, another cool thing that they're doing is that you now get a multi-stage 10-way traction control system similar to that of the 720S McLaren or the Mercedes AMG GTR. Basically, you can adjust different levels of when the traction control engages, and it's actually the first M car to implement this, so this tells me it's probably going to come to more of the M lineup in the future. But just a cool feature. I know the C63S is also doing this now too, so when they get all-wheel drive, it's going to be interesting to see how this factors in. And last but not least, enthusiasts rejoice, like him, that the M3 and M4 will be available in a 6-speed manual transmission. Now, you will be getting an 8-speed automatic transmission now. It's called their Steptronic transmission, so there's no more dual clutch, but this is likely going to be a much more reliable and efficient transmission. But the good news is, they did show off that it will be getting a manual, which puts it in a very small list of cars that are available as a manual today. Alright, let's talk about the price. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I'm a pretty big proponent on value for money and what's the justification that manufacturers have in increasing the MSRPs of their cars. Now, of course, from the F80, F82 to the G80 and G82 generations, there's a little bit of a price jump, but it's not as much as you would think. So just for context, the prior generation M3 and M4 started at $67,500 and $69,000 respectively. The G80 M3 starts at $69,900 and the G82 M4 starts at $71,800. And that's about a $2,000 to $2,500 jump per model. And considering that these are completely new redesigns, and it seems like they're going to bring some additional performance to the table, they're a little bigger, I would say it's to be determined if the increase is justified, but there's no doubt about it that these cars are easily going to hit six figures when you start speccing them out. I mean, I think I read somewhere that just the carbon seats option alone is like $4,000 to $5,000. So 100% you're going to see these cars over six figures, especially when they start to obviously get into the competition range, and if they do another CS type body, because even the M3 and the M4 CS today are over 100 grand. So we'll have to wait and see until it gets on the road to determine is it a much better car, but as far as value for money, it seems like it's pretty comparable on paper. So now you know a little bit more about the G80 M3 and the G82 M4. But before we close this video out, I wanted to show you some of the renders and basically modifications people have started making to this car before it's even been released. Let's go to Instagram. So starting off our list, we have Yugo Misana, who just did a simple license plate delete. And then we have Liu Kunyi, who took 8 of the different launch colors and just rendered the M3 in each one of them. Personally, the Tanzanite blue, that's probably one of my favorite BMW colors. And then we have BMW Insta, who did a front license plate delete on the M4 comp, lowered it, and changed the color to what looks like Suzuka Gray. BMW M-Gram did the same thing, except they changed the color to blue. Looks like lowering is a pretty popular choice here. Looks like Jeff Cook did a different render on the kidney grills, which not a big fan of this one. And then Dubcest, who again just lowered the M3 comp, and it looks pretty good when you have a darker color. You really don't notice the front end as much. And then you have Zero WT, who took a different take on the front grille, but my favorite is this M3 CSL render in orange, which essentially just keeps the standard front end of the 3 Series and puts all the M-ness around it. I really like that one. And then of course a couple different renders of some M3 estate or touring wagons. Beamer League, simply just removing the orange wrap off of the M Parts Catalog Showcase car, which in full black, it does look pretty sinister. And we have John rendering from Brazil, giving the M4 a slammed and cambered out approach. And BMW Blog taking a more conservative approach, using more of the 4 Series design, but I really like the way this grille looks. And I was waiting for this one. JB Cars coming in clutch with the M4 mperformance exhaust shooting brake wagon design. And my cars, my way here, not so much with a render, but just doing a comparison between the M3 and the Alpina B3. And probably my favorite render here is Brutal GLE 63 with the HREs on the G80 M3 lowered, perfect fitment. I think this would look really cool in real life. And as always, the internet shall remain undefeated. Lenny Urban with a quick fix to the front end situation on the M3. I just thought this one was funny. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes another velocitycrew quick look where we looked at the G80 M3 and the G82 M4 coming out next March 2021. Just once again wanted to thank you all for the support. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and you learned something. If you did, Giving a thumbs up, and if you're new, subscribing really helps. I want to keep producing these types of videos, and all the support you guys give me definitely gives me the energy to do it. So really appreciate it. Feel free to leave a comment with any feedback below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!